So as part of running the session today, last night, as part of our planning, we actually went through and said that we would we'd actually add another person to the panel. So Renee Gaskins from Principal is an additional member of our panel today. So now that we have 2 people from Principal, we do have to combine their names. They've requested that for the rest of the event that we refer to them as Danae as part of the panel. So that's part of what they've requested. Hopefully they're okay with that. We're also joined by a couple other folks as well. I'd like to introduce Scott Bowler from NBN and David from Acxiom IT. So we've got some great practitioners here from the major incident management side. And this is a really important topic that we hear about all the time. You don't really think about it until you hear weird things on the news about technology problems. So recently you may have heard about a telco outage in the Southeast with a bunch of mobile carriers being down in the US. You hear about United Airlines not being able to fly planes because of technology outages, and stock exchanges, like the New York Stock Exchanges that can't trade, seems kind of important, or newspapers that can't serve news online. All those sorts of artifacts are common day occurrences, whether you can include security breaches and stuff like that in there as well. And that's when you get to realize that a lot of the organizations that we work with day to day are part of our lives. And when things don't go wrong, or when things do go wrong, you wind up on the news in a lot of cases. So today, this particular panel was assembled to really talk about some of the practices that they have in place to go ahead and actually deal with these issues. So we'll learn a little bit about process, we'll learn about best practice, and we'll get some stories from these folks here as well. Now, because we're trying to get on schedule, I'll ask that we not go around the horn as we typically would in introductions. Instead, we'll ask as part of the first questions, we'll go through and actually have everyone introduce themselves. This is part of that. So we'll just go around the horn, and I'd like to, first off, just talk a little bit about yourselves and your company, but also in your world, what is a major incident? Right? So it seems kind of obvious if you're running an airline, for example, planes not flying, might be a problem, right? But so those things are kind of obvious, but every organization has a different way of defining what they consider a major incident to be. So why don't we start with you?
Okay, so Scott Bowler, I'm the IT Operations Manager at NBN. For us, a major incident is anything from an IT system going down that will impact the way that we're fulfilling orders for our customers. It could also mean an issue on the physical network. So we're literally in the process of laying fiber cables throughout the country, launching satellites and setting up wireless towers. So farmers that go through their back paddock and dig up fiber, that's us. IT systems go down, that's us. But then we also have another level on top of that where we actually now are starting to manage Australia's O services. So for Americans, that's your 9/11 stuff. So where we have natural disasters, that for us is a major incident as well. So we have to ensure that where we have floods, fires, where communities are out of contact, we need to get contact back in there quickly, whether that's driving in temporary exchanges and setting up community centres so that they can actually get that access back into the internet for data, get access to phones and so on. So yeah, we've got a rather large breadth that we consider major incidents.
That's right, that actually is pretty cool. Now, do any crazy animal stories come into that as well, like kangaroo attacks, things like that? Do those fit into the
Not so much kangaroos, more drop bears.
Drop bears, that's right. That's a whole separate conversation. If you have not heard the drop bear stories, that's something you want to talk to Scott about.
Absolutely.
Doug Ward, Principal Finance Group, shared service leader for IT area. Very similar. We monitor applications, disaster recovery, fires, earthquakes. We're a global company, so we have a bunch of different corporate offices worldwide that we have to monitor. Just recently, yesterday after meeting for the panel discussion, how we're going to work this, Renee, or Donay, and I left this office right here to go to the party, and we both got paged, and we had an earthquake in Chile. So it shows the system works. So
that's right.
And I'm Renee Gaskins, and I'm from Principal Financial Group. I'm actually the problem management manager, and I also head the team that is the incident commander. So the staff that actually handles the major incidents and all that communication. So for us, a major incident is anything that a service is degraded or unusable in some way as the business actually sees that. And we have those defined, and they are on a SharePoint site, and the business signs off on them before they're actually published. So that's how we know when it's a severity. P1.
I'm Dave Fink from Axiom Corporation, Acxiom IT, which is actually a new company. We were Axiom Corporation, the big consumer data company, and they decided to get out of the IT business and sold the IT portion of it. And so we're a new company as of August 1st, and we're looking to grow tremendously. IT is our business, and so you know, every day we live incidents and major incidents, not every day, but I would define it differently depending on whether it's a client incident or if it's an internal system that we're dealing with. It may be an internal system that clients are sharing. And if it's a client, they decide, you know, if any client impacting event is a major incident, then that's the way we'll respond to it. We have actually a code blue process internally that if more than one client's being impacted, we call that a major incident and would start our code blue process.
Very cool. So Doug, I'll start with you for this question. So, you know, when we talk about major incidents, the impact of it really kind of varies based on the type of issue that's taking place. For you guys, how do you first of all know that a major incident is happening? Do you wait for a phone call? Is it based on a monitoring infrastructure that tracks services? Or what are the components that actually alert you to the fact that not only something is happening, but something bad enough that potentially it's time to pull the major incident lever?
Yeah, what we have in place today is we have a bunch of different monitoring services in place. Most of our services go through Omnibus, which is an IBM tool. Right. So we can have a bunch of API, a bunch of web calls into that then when we have those monitors set up, we trigger off from Omnibus to xMatters. So instantaneous message will go out to either the on-call group or to the assignment group. And from there, we got a subscription set up within xMatters. So if it comes across as a Sev1, Sev2, or even informational, the respective groups can sign up for those subscriptions and get notified right away. So that's where we kind of set that up for get the right groups involved, get the right people notified, and then from there, depending on the SLAs that we have assigned, hopefully get it fixed in a reasonable amount of time.
Right. But what's the distinction between the regular monitoring versus knowing that it's really bad and it's time to engage the major incident team?
Yeah, that's when we call Renee.
Yeah.
So usually all the monitors come in via the xMatters automated side and a technical person is actually engaged. And then that technical person will do just a triage or just a first glance look at it just to make sure that everything is, you know, how bad is it, how many servers are down, what does it look like, those types of things. And then they actually make a call and say, yes, this is the level, it's a major incident, we call them severity 1s, or it's just a severity 2 or something like that. The other way that it could come in is if the service desk starts getting flooded with calls. So obviously if a monitor breaks or something fails on that side and your actual users and your customers call in, then the service desk will call the incident commander or event coordinator, and then they will make that call and say, yep, we got something, go ahead and issue communication out, or we issue communication out usually from our phones. We use the mobile app, and that's how that's done.
Okay. And then Dave, similar for you guys, I guess you have a lot of customers, so how do you
Well, I
deal
was
with
just
that?
going to say, I think it depends too how close it is to lunch or the end of the day. You know, if you're having some alerts and it's close to the end of the day, then it's a major incident. Let's get it fixed so we can go home.
Right. And then, interestingly for you, Scott, so in essence, really the whole country is your customer because you're providing core services. So how do you actually define at that level of scope what classifies as a major incident? Because it would seem like even small things, it might be small at the scale of the whole country, but they're still major for all the folks that they impact. So how do you actually draw a line between a regular and a real major incident?
Well, we actually use a 3D model. So you've got your regular impact and urgency matrix, and then we lay another level on top of that to give either a mission criticality of a service or a business criticality service, a business stat and a business basic. And our business actually is extremely involved in driving a lot of that. So we have wholesale broadband agreements with our incumbent telecommunications providers. So we're pretty much like the electricity grid that sits underneath. So we don't actually have retail out to end users, but we provide the underpinning utilities. So it's really driven by our wholesale agreements with our retail providers and via the business. And that model then really defines what will become a critical incident or just a major incident or just a normal incident.
Right. So it sounds like basically you guys really have to account for a lot of different variability in terms of dealing with the scope based on the agreement.
Absolutely.
Is that captured in any of your systems to automatically know that level of impact at the wholesale level?
Absolutely. All of that's built into our BMC remedy tool. So it's very simple for our service desk. They literally just go through their categorization process and the prioritization process. It pretty much picks it through our podcasts and our opcats.
Right. So it sounds like we've got a lot of variation here, right? So in terms of knowing that a major incident is happening, in some combinations it's monitored and a person makes the determination. In other cases it's based on a service model. In others you might even have to wait to hear from the customers because you can't be as tightly integrated. So you have a lot of variability in terms of what it occurs. And I'm curious about the major incident team. So certainly when you're dealing with major incidents, you have the core specialized folks. You're all here because you represent that team. But who backs you up? Do you have an on-call major incident leadership team who essentially acts as the primary person engaging all the other resources, or what's kind of the connection between those? So I'll start this time with you, Dave.
Sure, thanks, Abbas. So it would depend on the client. Some of our larger clients may have a team, an Acxiom IT team that's dedicated to them, and we call it delivery management. So there's a delivery management team that's responsible for that client or maybe multiple clients. And they're called out. They're generally the major incident manager because they know the client, they know their business, they know their systems, and then everybody else, the engineers, and just a normal on-call, for those systems.
Then Renee, what about on your side?
We have 7 people that actually rotate, and they take a week at a time, and they're on call.
So 24 hours a day, but you got a week?
Yep. And when it goes bad and you're there sometime days. But yes.
So you actually carry major incidents not only through the initial triage and resolution, but all the way through to final closure of the ticket.
Yep.
Okay, that's very interesting. That's actually, so typically we do see some organizations that break that up slightly differently. So another question that comes up pretty commonly when we're dealing with major incidents is there's a lot of pressure to not only fix the problem, but start to communicate the impact of it to other people. And that's got to vary, right? So if you have a problem that you detect in something that you control, you're trying to almost proactively let the people know, saying, before you call me, I'm going to call you. The example I always like to give for that is if you've ever had an outage and you've called the service to say, hey, I've got a problem, and they tell you, well, we know about that. It's a little frustrating, right? So you have those sorts of streams to deal with. So if you were to kind of look at the order of operations in terms of who knows first and who knows second and where that fits into your process, that would be kind of interesting to hear about, I think, for the audience to hear about how you actually, what order you follow and why. So, why don't we start with you on this one, Scott?
Typically, it's either our NOC or our IT command center that will know first. They're the ones with the eyes on the screens. Once they pick it up, they'll log a ticket. We're usually the second people to know, the major incident management team, once it's actually validated it's a MIM. After us, the next line would be our service delivery partners that sit across the IT and the network space back into the business. So they're pretty much the eyes and ears of what the business is. So as soon as we get told, we tell them, we know something's going on, go out, get your feelers out there, find out what the impact is so that you can actually proactively tell us what's actually happening, what the user experience is. And then straight after that is our support teams, our network engineers. And then from that systematically going through the executive, the management, media relations, legal, security, end customers, and then the whole shebang from there.
Right. And then on your side, would that be, Doug, do you kind of run the communications, or Renee, does that fall on your shoulders in terms of making sure the message gets out to the right folks?
Basically, it kind of relates back who initially got the message. Right. So we have our IOC that kind of monitors the omnibus monitor board, similar to what you have. At the same time, if an alert comes in critical, it goes to them, but also sends out through xMatters to the respective IT group. From there, that's where we make the decision, and usually it's the IT person communicating with the event coordinator. So that person who's on call for that week period,
right,
saying, hey, go ahead and send out this Sev1 alert. And at that time, usually that's when we get in our executives, upper management, they get those notifications. So it kind of goes in that order. The sooner we notify, if it is a Sev1, the upper management, the better off we are. So
in your environment, because you do have kind of people in the middle of the process determining that it's major incident rolling out, what's typical time frame from when something actually goes bump in the night to when the final person on the executive team typically knows that there is a major incident taking place?
We usually give the technicians, in the middle of the night, we usually, a rule of thumb is 10, 15 minutes to get up, boot their laptop up. Lots of them just leave their laptop up and signed on. And then 10. So we try and have that first notification out inside of 30 minutes.
Got it. That's actually a pretty aggressive time frame because you have to determine that it's a major incident,
Yep.
understand the impact, because I assume you have to communicate the scope of the impact
Yep.
out to executives versus saying something's on fire.
Absolutely,
Right? It'd be more
yes.
specific than that. And how about for you, Dave? How does that
So-
work on your side?
Time can be money to our clients, and so it's any major incident's an immediate escalation. But our focus is to get the person that's going to fix the problem on the call first. So engineering, delivery management are immediately on the call, immediately 5-10 minutes, whatever it might take. But the notifications going out through xMatters improves that greatly. But then the executive account team is responsible for communicating to the client. And we do have a standardized format for sending out communications. But the technical team will work the problem, fix the problem. The account team is responsible for communicating to the clients.
So in your environment, since you are dealing with multiple clients, I know we mentioned a couple of tools already, but I'm curious to understand what are some of the tools that you use to actually engage different customers in there? So commonly, certainly you'll have your monitoring systems, you'll have a service management platform, and you'll have obviously you guys are here because you're xMatters clients as well. Do you use any, is that the whole set of suites, or do you use things like collaboration platforms, whether it's Linc for Business or Slack or HipChat or things like that? What are the other things that are part of your toolkit that you're like, look, these are the main things that we rely on to effectively deal with a major incident?
So being an IT service provider, we've got a wide range of tools, especially in the monitoring space. But we use xMatters for notification, and then we'll get people on a bridge call. So, bridge, whether it be the xMatters bridge or an internal bridge, right, is always in use. And we've got kind of a cool tool, hate to plug them at an xMatters event,
That's
but
okay.
Extraction, which recently was bought by another company, I forget the name, but Extraction is a reporting tool that allows us to take the ticket information from our ticketing system and combine it all into a graphical type information that you can then drill down into. And so everybody here knows that 80% of all of our outages are caused by change, right? And we used to try and quickly search through the ticketing system and try and figure out what was changed in the last hour, 2 hours that might have caused this situation. And now with that extraction tool, I've got a display all the time up in operations, and they'll see exactly what changed in the last 2 hours, and they can drill down into it, helps them pinpoint if a change actually impacted us.
Yeah. We're doing exactly the same thing. Yeah. Absolutely. We've got real-time change in the NOC, and Extraction is their main tool. Yeah. Fantastic. Really, really good way to very simply and eloquently articulate that's exactly where it's gone wrong. You can start seeing the spike from that point. It's definitely that change, and it really reduces your mean time to restore once you actually know what's caused it. Yeah.
And Renee, what do you keep in your toolkit? And Doug as well.
We use Linc quite a bit. We also are kind of restructuring what we're currently using. Previously, or still now, we're with HP Service Manager. We are changing to a different company, and we're doing a lot more integrations with that to communicate. So we're communicating with integration with Omnibus, xMatters, Jira, to get that communication out a little better. And like you said, with this new tool too, we'll be able to do that impact analysis to get the right people involved. So if you do have a flood of incidents coming in, we're going to be able to correlate those events and be able to then track it down to what is that main core.
Right. Very cool. So it certainly sounds like there's lots of different steps involved in your process. So in any given, if you were to break out a major incident life cycle, so look at it everywhere from the things that had happened before it ever is declared a major incident to when it's declared a major incident, you engage your initial people, you get the resolution process started till it's fixed, and then you've got, of course, go through and actually close it out officially to everyone. How's the time typically broken down? How do you actually evaluate that today in your organizations? I'll start with you, Dave, on that one.
Sure. So I think we do a pretty good job of notification. Probably the biggest problem with notification is there's so much information that's coming in to try and decipher it. But operations will get alerts. We'll have tickets being opened up. The service desk will be getting phone calls. I think we pretty quickly can can know that there's a problem, and then the notification and getting the people assembled, the major incident management team assembled, happens pretty rapidly today too. It's been a struggle in the past, but as you know, with the xMatters tool, we can have it all predefined and have the right calls and the right people join in the bridge quickly. Probably our biggest opportunity is then diagnosing the problem. If it's not something that's obvious, if it's not that change that somebody put in 5 minutes ago, that's probably the biggest part, is just diagnosing, coming to the conclusion that this is where the problem is. Okay, now what do we do to resolve it? And then once you know, the resolution depends, it depends on the system. It could be a long recovery, or it could be a short recovery, but at least you know that you're moving in the right direction, and you kind of can estimate then when you're going to be, when service will be restored.
And Scott, what about you guys? So obviously you have a large scope to cover. So for you, where is most of the time wind up being spent in that major incident process?
Pretty much the same. Before xMatters, it was all about that initial triage and validation. Now that we have xMatters in place, we've got the right people on the calls a lot faster, but it's literally just trying to drill down and find where the issues actually lie. And I'm sure this is the same for all of you guys. We have a very complex set of tools and applications that make up our service lines. I mean, just our fulfillment process itself goes through something like 30 applications and systems. So when we have a fulfillment issue, it's trying to actually pinpoint which one of those 30 systems is the trigger, which is the downstream impact, and which is the upstream cause. Yeah, that's where all of our time goes.
So it sounds like you guys are relying on xMatters as really is the core communication piece to pull these things together. So I'm curious, once you have the automation in place, one of the potential downsides, I always have to be careful talking about downsides of our own product, but one of the downsides is you actually don't know where you'll be when you get engaged. You kind of lose control over the, hey, I was on holiday and I got paged, or we have all kinds of awkward stories about where you became the victim of the major incident management process without really intending it to happen at the right time. So Scott, where's kind of the strangest place where you've been pulled into the major incident management process with using xMatters?
I think the strangest place for me was I was sitting on the beach in the Sunshine Coast, and the phone went off, and it was an xMatters alert, and I thought, yep, no, that's okay, I'm not on call, leave it to the team, just calm down, chill, relax, I'm on the beach, I've got the kids playing in the sea. The next thing I get a call from one of my MIM guys saying, the tool's great, but we don't actually know if anyone's actually set up their rosters in the tool yet. So we're trying to go through our spreadsheet, but now it's all out of date as well. Can you help us out? So I had to pull out the laptop and actually go through the tool to actually just justify that the support teams had done their job and set up their rosters.
So first of all, you took your laptop to the beach. That in itself is a bit of that's not recommendation in terms of best practice.
True, but that was more for my downloaded media streaming, just watching that, yeah.
Of course. So now that so when you went through that exercise and you had that scenario where the information wasn't current, how long was it before that information was forcibly corrected? So next time you didn't get a call on the beach.
It was literally 2 days after I got back from that holiday. I sent an email out to pretty much all of the GMs across the IT and network stack, just saying, guys, the tool's been in for a week, you've had a week, you're supposed to get the rosters in place, get it in place, we're escalating to the CEO.
Nice. That's certainly, a CEO escalation is always helpful in terms of getting things going. Renee, what about you? What's the strangest place you've been co-opted by xMatters?
Now that we have the mobile app, it's not really an inconvenience. Because, the phone goes off in the middle of the night and you just kind of roll over, pick it up, you load the mobile app, you send out the page, you set it down, you wait for the technicians to do their job. That's the beautiful thing about being the event coordinator, right? So then Doug's people are up working, and then they just call every hour. So probably that, or I was at my daughter's swim meet, so kid activities and some of those types of things.
Right. Dave, what about you?
We've all been woken up in the middle of the night. I've gotten up, from a dinner with friends out for dinner and stood in the lobby of a restaurant, taking a call. But probably the weirdest one was having to get up in the middle of church and walk out into the church offices, because that was the only place that was quiet, and I missed the rest of the service. And while I think God understands, my wife did not.
You always have to choose, and that's where I recommend choosing the wife. That's probably better in the short term anyway. So actually, we talked a little bit about communication channels and the ones that work effectively for you guys. So, with xMatters, you have a wide variety of choices, and people have their own preferences. For some, the rarest thing to happen on my phone is phone calls itself. I use it for everything except that. It's not because I don't have friends. I have two. But it's mostly because, the phone ringing it indicates something very important happening. But in the context of major incident management, which communication channel, whether you're talking telephony, texting, the mobile application, so on, pagers, for some of the folks who have healthcare customers as well, which one has been the most effective for your teams in terms of engaging them in a timely manner? Doug, why don't we start with your team?
I'd say with our team, the biggest piece of it is actually most people have smartphones. So receiving text messages. I'm one that, I hate phone calls. I hate answering the phone. Text message I can handle.
Right.
And that's been the big thing. Most people are going to the smartphones, going to the text messages, and kind of have the secondary backup to the phone call within the xMatter system. Right now, if I get a call, well, then I know the first couple of people on the list ignored it, and it's coming to me, so then I get on the call and call them.
Right.
But it's kind of the schedule that you have set up and who gets notified. The big thing is text, phone, and then also emails or the mobile app.
Right. And so it sounds like you guys are actually using the mobile app a fair bit as well, right, in terms of engaging them, right, Renee?
Yes, we do.
And is that, how do you guys push that out? Is that typically everyone kind of who's on the team, you encourage them to download the applications themselves? Is that the general approach you've taken as well?
Yes, we do. And for the automated side, I know that they like the app because then they can respond via that. And so that makes it way more convenient, and the sounds are different. So we just made it available, and most everybody was clamoring to get it.
Right.
So we didn't have to push it, everybody just pulled it.
Right. That's what you want. I think that the mobile app provides a great advantage in terms of being able to interact more richly. You have the reports and stuff accessible there as well. What about you, Scott? What is the most popular communication channel or most effective one for you guys?
The most effective would definitely be the app. Absolutely. I mean, the fact that you can just instantly respond, you can instantly get onto bridges, that is absolutely the most effective. Certainly not the most popular. We've got, I would say, a lot of old school management that don't like change. So they're very much hooked on the old SMS. So that's probably the most popular, but it is changing. As the word gets out there, we've done a very soft-on approach. We were told, don't go out and hammer it. Softly does it. But it's, as more managers are picking up the app, they're seeing the benefits of it and going, this is absolutely fantastic. Why didn't we know about this before? It's like, well, you didn't read the email. And so it's picking up in popularity, absolutely.
Great. What about you, Dave?
So I think it's still phone calls is primary, but more and more I think it's moving towards a text-based. I think people opt for that more and more. Certainly the mobile app is going to play a bigger role. But think about this. The engineer that you need on that call to fix the problem is down on the computer room floor, and cell coverage isn't very good on the computer room floor. That's also too noisy. And so having the mobile app or having text available to that person so that you can still contact them when they're down there working is really a benefit.
So you guys have wildly different verticals and stuff that you focus on, different geographies as well. What do you think what is different about your major incident management process, you think, versus others that you've seen? Is there something that sticks out to you that are like, we're a little different because of blank? What about you, Scott?
I think because we are so wide in what we deliver as far as major incident management goes, across the IT stack, across the physical network, and across our OO services and our community services, our process has basically had to evolve and adopt a very robust set of stages through that process. We're a little bit different in as far as we spend a lot of time, a lot of heavy processing around that up front, actually triaging it and validating that it is a major incident and where it is and what it is and how it is. So for us, the triage aspect of it and that upfront validation is key.
What about you, Dave?
I think we're different because we are IT services, and so we don't just have customers running on our systems, we run customer systems. And so the variety of the different tools that we use have to, tenancy to us is everything. So tenancy, the tools have to be able to keep one customer from seeing another customer's environments. And so tenancy is everything, and the vendors don't often think of it in terms of an outsourcing company. You know, they think of it in terms of maybe big companies that run their own systems, and you know, one company that is in the tool. With us, you know, there may be multiple companies in the tool, and so we have to have that tenancy. Of course, xMatters provides that, but not all of the companies, the vendors do. So that's always a problem. Always seems to be a problem for us that we're always battling.
So I know we're at this point standing between lunch and everyone else. So I'll ask one last question, and then what we'll do is I'll talk a little bit about how we'll structure Q&A just in the interest of time. But I'm curious, so now that you guys have xMatters in a system, I always like to ask this question: what would happen if tomorrow I took it away? Let's say I was a really bad guy, and I said, look, you know, I know it's been great working with you guys, but I just don't think you appreciate it enough. So you know what, I'm taking it back.
Please don't. Please don't.
So I'm curious, and the reason I ask is not because I'm a monster, although that's partially true, but really just to understand, what are the different roles that it plays in your environment? Is it part of your engagement process? Do you use it for the conference calling? Do you use it for executive alerting? What are the different parts of the major incident management process that xMatters fulfills for you?
So first of all, up front, it's getting the notification out to the network support guys that we actually have an issue, for them to actually respond, accept, and start looking at it. Second is the bridge conferencing, both technical and business and customer bridges as well. We then have another level of bridging for our field ops that they can call in at any time and get updates. Now, which road do I need to take in to get into flood areas, so on and so forth. Then the next level after that is the reporting aspect of it, using the extraction tool as well to grab the information out of xMatters to say, well, this is the timeline of events. How did it play out? What do we need to improve? So end to end.
And Danae?
We use it for targeted communication. So sometimes we work in the financial industry, so sometimes we have events, major incidents that we don't necessarily want everyone to know, so we don't want them published. And so we create groups on the fly, and we can very specifically target those people that we want to communicate to. And it's forced communication, so it's sent to them. They don't have to worry about subscribing, and when that major incident is over, the group is disassembled, and then you don't have to worry about re-communicating it to them. The other thing that I've used it for, and I was told to share this, is we feed our people if they're there for an extended period of time, and I created a form that had the option of pizza or Jimmy John's, what they wanted for dinner, and then I sent it to everybody that was working the incident and had them respond, and then I knew what to order. And then when the food got there, I used that same group and then sent a message and said, your food's here.
That's a use case right after. That's very close,
Right.
near and dear to my heart. I mean, food, major incident, sure, customers are, but food, that takes priority.
I'd be afraid they would be dragging out the incident so they could get fed.
So you're on the opposite side. You're like, you will not be fed until it's done. That sort of
Exactly.
interesting. Cruelty versus looking after everyone. There's a little slightly different approach there.
Quite different, yeah. So today we use it for notification, escalation primarily. We have started using it for change control. The previous speaker talked about that, and I really like that option. And some of the things that we saw today, or yesterday, in the training part of it, in being able to integrate with some outside services, I see, you know, a greater use of it for us in the future.
Great. So with that, I guess what I'd like to do is, we had planned on Q&A. However, I think in the interest of time and making sure we actually do get to lunch and get back on schedule, what I'd like to do is, we actually have lunch tables set up with major incident management topics. So you'll actually have a much better opportunity to interact with our speakers and other experts, you know, at lunchtime. So what we'll do is, I'll ask for a Q&A to take place in that forum instead. And with that, I guess we'll wrap our panel and set everyone free. Thank you very much for your time on the panel. I think this is a really, really interesting topic, and being practitioners is great for the team to hear everyone about directly. Thank you again.
Thanks, Abbas.
Thanks.